Hello everybody, this is Refresh and I am here to bring you a battle between the two War of the Spark Planeswalker decks. Over here we have Gideon and over there we have Jace. We'll be playing best of 3 and we will roll to see who goes first. Gideon gets a 3, Jace gets a 7 and Jace will opt to play first. We'll draw 7. Jace gets a Guild Pack Informant, Island, Jace's Projection, Stealth Mission, Bloom Hulk, Courage in Crisis, and Forest. We can't actually play anything with the 2 lands that we have, so we are going to turn this back in and mulligan. Our second hand has a Jace's Projection, Jace's Ruse, Band Together, Spark Double, Island, Jace Arcane Strategist, and Island. Again, we can't really keep this hand because we are short on lands, so we will reject it. Now we have Jace Arcane Strategist, Pollenbright Druid, Island, New Horizons, Band Together, Island, and Forest, and I think this is actually a keeper. We're going to return 2 cards, and so we will return Jace and Band Together back into the deck. We'll put Band Together up top. And we'll see what Gideon is up to. Gideon draws 7. Gideon gets a Cruel Celebrant, a Plains, Gideon the Oathsworn, Cruel Celebrant, Makeshift Battalion, Kaya Bane of the Dead, Desperate Lunge, and Plains. It's only 2 Plains, and we don't have any black mana. We can cast Desperate Lunge, but it's kind of useless, and so we're going to return this and hope to get a better hand. Alright, now we have a Plains, a Desperate Lunge, another Desperate Lunge, a Kaya Bane of the Dead, another Desperate Lunge, a Bond of Discipline, and a Swamp. Again, 3 Desperate Lunges aren't going to get us anywhere. We have 0 permanents except for a 6 mana Kaya, and we only have 2 lands, so this is not a keepable hand. We will return it and hope to get another better hand. Gideon's third hand has a War Screecher, a Swamp, a Plains, an Enforcer Griffin, a Plains, a Charmed Stray, and a Plains. This is certainly a keepable hand. We will take a Plains and stick it on the bottom. And then we will take a Plains and stick that on the bottom, knowing that this deck has an abundance of lands in it. And we will keep this hand. Turn 1, Jace will play a Forest, and Jace will pass the turn. Gideon will draw. He gets an Orzhov Guildgate. We will play a Plains, tap it, and then we'll play a Charmed Stray. It is a 1/1 cat creature. It has lifelink, and when Charmed Stray enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control named Charmed Stray. This is the first, so it will have no such effect. And then we will pass the turn. Jace will draw and gets a Kiora Behemoth Beckner. We will play an Island, and then we will tap both, and we will play the Pollenbright Druid. It is a 1/1 Elf Druid creature, and it says when Pollenbright Druid enters the battlefield, choose 1. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or proliferate. We're going to choose to put the counter on the Pollenbright Druid so that it can block the Charmed Stray effectively, and then we will pass the turn. Gideon untaps. Gideon draws. Gets a Gideon's Company. Gideon will play the Swamp, and then we'll tap both the Swamp and the Plains to play the War Screecher. It is a 1/3 bird creature with flying, and for 5 and a white mana you can tap it and give other creatures you control +1/+1 until end of turn. Because Jace has a 2/2 as a ground blocker, we're not going to be attacking with this Charmed Stray, and we will pass the turn. Jace taps. Jace draws. Gets a Guild Pact Informant. We'll play the Island. And then to take advantage of the Guild Pact Informant's ability to proliferate, we're going to be casting it first. So we will tap all of these and we'll play the Guild Pact Informant. It is a 1/1 Fairy Rogue. It has flying and says whenever Guild Pact Informant deals the combat damage to a player or planeswalker, proliferate, which says choose any number of permanents and or players, then give each another counter of each kind they are already there. So that will cause their 1/1 counters to proliferate. And because my opponent has the War Screecher and the cat, there's no reason to attack with a Pollenbright Druid, so we will pass the turn. Jace taps. Jace draws, gets a Plains. Jace will play the Orzhov Guildgate tapped, and to discourage attacking with the Guild Pact Informant, Gideon will just pass the turn. I might have called Gideon Jace during this turn, but that's a mistake. Jace untaps. Jace draws, gets a Courage in Crisis. Jace will tap 3 mana, and then cast Courage in Crisis, targeting the Guild Pact Informant to put a +1/+1 counter on it, and then we'll use Proliferate ability, which will cause this to get another counter, and the Palmbright Druid to get another counter. We will then attack with the Guild Pact Informant, as well as the Palmbright Druid. That's 6 damage coming Jace's way, and no matter which way he blocks, it will be bad for him. So Jace will just take 6 and go to 14. This causes the Guild Pact Informant's ability to trigger, which adds another +1/+1 counter to each creature, and then Jace will pass the turn. Gideon untaps. Gideon draws. Gets a Gideon's Company. Gideon will play the Plains, and then Gideon will tap all 4 mana to play 1 Gideon's Company, which is a 3/3 human soldier. Whenever you gain life, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Gideon's Company. And then, for 3 and a white, you can put a loyalty counter on target Gideon Planeswalker. That last part isn't going to matter here. However, we will attack with the Charmed Stray, as well as the War Screecher, into Jace. Jace cannot block, will take 2 damage, and go to 18. Gideon will gain 1 life from the lifelink on the Charmed Stray to go back up to 15. And because we gained life, Gideon's Company will get 2 +1/+1 counters, making it a 5/5, and then Gideon will pass the turn. Jace untaps. Jace draws, gets another Guild Pact Informant. Jace will attack with just the flying Guild Pact Informant. Gideon can't block, will take 4 and go to 11. This triggers the Guild Pact Informant's ability, and we will proliferate, putting another +1/+1 counter on each of these creatures, making them 5/5s, and then Gideon will follow up by tapping 3 mana and playing another Guild Pact Informant, and then Jace, who I think I might have been calling Gideon in this turn, will pass the turn. Gideon untaps. Gideon draws. Gets a swamp. Gideon will play the swamp, and then Gideon will spend 4 mana and play another Gideon's Company, and then Gideon will attack with the Charmed Stray and the Gideon's Company. Jace will put the Palmbright Druid in front of the Gideon's Company and will opt to trade with the Guild Pact Informant. So it'll be trades all around. Jace will lose the Palmbright Druid and the Guild Pact Informant. Gideon will lose the Gideon's Company as well as the Charm Stray, but the Charm Stray will still trigger lifelink, so Gideon will gain 1 life and will put 2 +1/+1 counters on the Gideon's Company, and then Gideon will pass the turn. Jace untaps. Jace draws, gets a Jace's Projection. Jace will spend 3 mana and then play Kiora, a Behemoth Beckoner. She is a 7 loyalty Planeswalker Kiora. Whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield, under your command, draw a card. We don't have any of that, but she does have a -1, which lets you untap target permanent. So we'll put her on the battlefield with 7 loyalty counters. And then we will attack with the Guild Pact Informant for 5 in the air. Gideon will chump with the War Screecher, and the War Screecher will die. Then we will use Kira's ability and -1 to untap the Guild Pact Informant. And then Jace will pass the turn. Gideon untaps. Gideon draws. Gets another swamp. Gideon will play the swamp. And Gideon will attack with the Gideon's Company as a 5/5. Jace will not block, will take 5 and go to 13. Gideon will spend 5 mana to play the Enforcer Griffin. It is a 3/4 Griffin with flying. Put it on the battlefield, and then Gideon will pass the turn. Jace untaps. Jace draws, gets a forest, will play the forest. Jace will attack with the Guild Pact Informant. Gideon will block with the Enforcer Griffin, chumping, and will lose the Enforcer Griffin. Jace will follow up by casting the Jace's Projection. It is a 2/2 Wizard Illusion. Whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on Jace's Projection, and for 3 and a blue, put a loyalty counter on target Jace Planeswalker. And then Jace will pass the turn. Gideon untaps. Gideon draws, gets a Desperate Lunge. Gideon will attack with Gideon's Company. Jace will opt not to block, will take 5 and go to 8, and Gideon will pass the turn. Jace untaps. Jace draws, gets another Guild Pact Informant. Because Jace drew a card, we'll put a +1/+1 counter on Jace's projection. And then we will attack with the Guild Pact Informant and Jace's projection. And Gideon will just take it because he can't do anything about it and go to 4. We will trigger the Proliferate ability here, giving a +1/+1 counter to each of these. And we will also then spend 3 mana to play another Guild Pact Informant. Oh, we'll also put a +1/+1 counter on Kiora here. And then we will use Kiora's ability to -1 and to untap the giant Guild Pact Informant. And then Jace will pass the turn. Gideon untaps. Gideon draws. Gets a Gideon's Battlecry. We'll spend 4 mana and play Gideon's Battlecry. It says put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. We'll do that, making this a 6/6. You may search your library and or graveyard for a card named Gideon the Oathsworn, reveal it, put it into your hand. If you search your library this way, shuffle it. So we'll go ahead and look for the Gideon in here. We found it, we'll put it into our hand. We'll shuffle. And then we will pass the turn. Jace untaps. Jace draws, gets a Spark Double. Oh, this should be 7, sorry. Then we will spend 3 mana to play New Horizons, putting it on the forest over here. And we will give a +1/+1 counter to the Guild Pact Informant, making it a 2/2. And then we will attack with the Guild Pact Informant, Jace's projection, and the other Guild Pact Informant for a total of 13 damage. Gideon will spend 2 mana and cast Desperate Lunge. Target creature, which will be Gideon's Company, gains +2/+2 and flying until end of turn, and will also gain 2 life. The +2/+2 will make it a 7/7. By gaining 2 life, we'll go up to 6, and then we'll put 2 more +1/+1 counters on the now flying Gideon's Company, making it a 9/9, and we will block the large Gideon's Informant. We will still take 6 damage, so that will kill us. Jace will lose the large Guild Pact Informant, but will win the game. We'll be right back for Game 2. For Game 2, Gideon will opt to be on the play. We'll draw 7 cards. We get a Plains, a Swamp, a Desperate Lunge, a Cruel Celebrant, and a Swamp. This is not an ideal hand because we don't have a lot of action, but we can play the 2 Cruel Celebrants and we can use the Desperate Lunge, so we will keep this hand. Jace will draw 7. We get a Ward Scale Crocodile, a Bloom Hulk, a Jace's Triumph, a Stealth Mission, Kiora Behemoth Beckoner, Ward Scale Crocodile, and Bloom Hulk. 7 spells, no lands. This is a no keeper. The second hand has a Simic Guildgate, an island, a forest, a Courage in Crisis, Bloom Hulk, and Ward Scale Crocodile. This is not ideal. However, I think it is a keeper, and so we will keep this hand and we will drop the Simic Guildgate to the bottom of the deck. Gideon will open with a single Plains and will pass the turn. Jace draws, gets an island, and Jace will play the forest, and then Jace will pass the turn. Gideon draws, gets a Plains, will play the swamp, will tap the Plains in the swamp to play the Cruel Celebrant. It is a 1/2 vampire. Whenever Cruel Celebrant or another creature or Planeswalker you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. And then Gideon will pass the turn. Jace draws, gets a New Horizons, will play the island, and then Jace will pass the turn. Gideon untaps, he draws, gets a Gideon's Battlecry. Gideon will play a Plains, will tap the Plains and the Swamp for another Cruel Celebrant, and we will attack with the first Cruel Celebrant for 1. Jace, unable to block, will take 1 and go to 19. Then Gideon will pass the turn. Jace draws, gets an island, will play the island, and then Jace will pass the turn. Gideon untaps. Gideon draws, gets an Ajani's Pridemate. Gideon will play a swamp and then play the Ajani's Pridemate. It is a 2/2 cat soldier. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on Ajani's Pridemate. And then we will attack with both Cruel Celebrants for 2 damage. Jace can't block, will take 2 and go to 17. And then Gideon will pass the turn. Jace draws, gets a Bloom Hulk. Jace will play an island. And then Jace will tap 4 mana to play a Bloom Hulk. It's a 4/4 plant elemental. When Bloom Hulk enters the battlefield, proliferate. We will not be proliferating this time, however. And then we will pass the turn. Gideon untaps. Gideon draws, gets another Desperate Lunge. We'll play the Plains here. And then we will attack with the Ajani's Pridemate. Jace remembers that Desperate Lunge last game and will opt not to block this time. We'll take 2 and then go to 15. Gideon will follow up by playing Gideon's Battle Cry. We'll put a +1/+1 counter on each creature and then look for the Oath Sworn. There it is. We'll put it into our hand. We'll shuffle. And then Gideon will pass the turn. Jace untaps. Jace draws. Gets a Stealth Mission. Jace will play an island. And then Jace will spend 5 mana to play a Ward Scale Crocodile. It is a 5/3 crocodile with hexproof, which means that it can't be the target of opponent's spells or abilities. And then we will pass the turn. Gideon will untap. Gideon will draw. We'll get an Ob Nixilis's Cruelty. And then Gideon will attack with the Ajani's Pridemate. Jace has a comfortable life total, and so he will not block and will take the 3 to go to 12. And then Gideon will pass the turn. Jace untaps. Jace draws. Gets an island. We'll play the island. We'll spend 3 mana to play the Stealth Mission to put 2 +1/+1 counters on a target creature we control. We'll choose the Ward Scale Crocodile, making it a 7/5. And that creature can't be blocked this turn. And then we will attack with the Ward Scale Crocodile for 7. Jace can't block. We'll take 7 and go to 13. And then we'll follow up by tapping 3 mana to play New Horizons, targeting one of the islands. And then we'll put the +1/+1 counter on the Bloom Hulk. In response to the trigger for the +1/+1 counter, Gideon will tap 5 mana and play Ob Nixilis's Cruelty, targeting the Bloom Hulk. It says target creature gets -5/-5 until end of turn. If that creature would die this turn, exile it instead. The Bloom Hulk can't receive the counter, and so will be exiled. And then Jace will end the turn. Gideon untaps. Gideon draws. Gets a Plains. We'll play the Plains. We'll spend all 6 mana to play Gideon the Oathsworn. It is a 4 loyalty Gideon legendary Planeswalker. It says whenever you attack with 2 or more non-Gideon creatures, put a +1/+1 counter on each of these creatures. For +2 until end of turn, a Gideon the Oathsworn becomes a 5/5 white soldier creature that's still a Planeswalker. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to him this turn. And for -9, exile Gideon the Oathsworn and each creature your opponents control. We'll give Gideon 4 loyalty counters and we'll immediately +2 him to 6. And then we will attack with the Ajani's Pridemate and the Cruel Celebrant, and it will trigger Gideon's ability and put a +1/+1 counter on each of these creatures, making it a 4/4 and a 3/4. Jace can't block. We'll take 7 and go to 5. And then Gideon will pass the turn. Jason taps. Jace draws. Gets a Simic Guildgate. We'll play the Simic Guildgate tapped. And then we will tap 4 mana to play the Bloom Hulk. When it enters the battlefield, we'll proliferate, making the Ward Scale Crocodile get another +1/+1 counter, making it an 8/6. And then we will pass the turn. Gideon untaps. Gideon draws. Gets a Charmed Stray. Gideon will +2 himself to make himself a 5/5 creature. And then we will attack with every creature, including Gideon, giving a +1/+1 counter to each. except for Gideon, because he is a Gideon creature. So we have a 3/4, a 4/5, a 5/5, and a 5/5 attacking. This is not going to go well for Jace. He will put the Ward Scale Crocodile in front of the Ajani's Pridemate and will block the Cruel Celebrant with the Bloom Hulk. In response, Gideon will cast 2 Desperate Lunges, targeting the Cruel Celebrant and the other unblocked Cruel Celebrant, giving them +2/+2. This will trigger gain 2 life twice, which will take Gideon up to 17 life. And then we'll give the Ajani's Pridemate 2 more counters to make it a 7/7. This means the Ward Scale Crocodile will trade with the Ajani's Pridemate. The Bloom Hulk will be eaten by the Cruel Celebrant, and we will take a total of 8 damage, and Jace will perish. And that's the end of that. Ajani's Pridemate dies, but we win. We'll be right back with Game 3. For Game 3, Jace will choose to go first. We'll draw 7 cards. Jace draws an Island, a Forest, a Bloom Hulk, a Simic Guildgate, Band Together, Forest, and Jace's Projection. This is a really slow hand, and after keeping a slow hand last game, we will mulligan this and hope to draw more action in the early game. Jace draws an Island, Jace's Ruse, Guild-Pact Informant, Merfolk Skydriver, and Bioessence Hydra. This is not a very good hand, primarily because we don't have any green mana. However, the 2 Guild-Pact Informants and the Merfolk Skydriver could possibly get there if we draw 1 green mana. So we'll keep this hand prospectively, and we will take the Jace's Ruse and put it on the bottom. Gideon draws 7. He gets a Trusted Pegasus, a Plains, a Cruel Celebrant, a Charmed Stray, a Swamp, and a Desperate Lunge. This is a pretty good aggressive hand, so we will keep this. Jace will begin with a single island, and then we'll pass the turn. Gideon draws, gets a Swamp, we'll play a Plains, we'll tap that Plains and play a Charmed Stray, and then we will pass the turn. Jace will draw. We get an island, we'll play the island, and then we will pass the turn. Gideon untaps, Gideon draws, gets a Gideon's Company, we will play a Swamp, we'll tap the Plains and the Swamp to play a Cruel Celebrant, and we'll attack with Charm Stray for 1. Jace can't block, we'll take 1 and go to 19. Gideon will gain 1 life off of the Charm Stray's lifelink to go up to 21, and then Gideon will pass the turn. Jace draws, gets a Stealth Mission, we'll play an island, we'll spend 3 mana, and we will play a Guild-Pact Informant, and then Jace will pass the turn. Gideon untaps, Gideon draws, gets another Swamp, we'll play the Swamp, and then we will attack with both the Charmed Stray and the Cruel Celebrant for 2 damage. Jace will opt not to block, and will take 2 to go to 17. Gideon gains 1 life to go up to 22, and then we'll follow up by tapping 3 mana and playing the Trusted Pegasus. It is a 2/2 Pegasus with flying. Whenever Trusted Pegasus attacks, target attacking creature without flying gains flying until end of turn. And then we will pass the turn. Jace taps. Jace draws. Gets a Spark Double. We will tap 3 mana and then play Stealth Mission. We'll put the 2 +1/+1 counters on the Guild-Pact Informant, making it a 3/3. And it can't be blocked this turn. We'll attack with the Guild-Pact Informant. Gideon can't block. We'll take 3 and go back down to 19. This will trigger Proliferate on the Informant, putting another +1/+1 counter on it, making it a 4/4. And then Jace will pass the turn. Gideon untaps. Gideon draws. Gets a Swamp. We'll play the Swamp. Gideon will tap 4 mana and play Gideon's Company, and then we will attack with a Trusted Pegasus, the Charm Stray, and the Cruel Celebrant, and trigger of the Pegasus ability will go on the Charm Stray, and so we'll do 4 damage, and 1 damage being lifelink. Jace can't block, we'll take 4 and go down to 13. Gideon will get 1 life off the Charm Stray, and then go back up to 20. Gideon's Company will trigger, and we'll put 2 +1/+1 counters on it, making it a 5/5. And then Gideon will pass the turn. Jace untaps. Jace draws. Gets an island. We'll play the island. We will tap 4 mana and play the Spark Double. It is a 0/0 illusion. It says you may have Spark Double enter the battlefield as a copy of a creature or planeswalker you control, except it enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it if it's a creature, and it isn't legendary if that permanent is legendary. So we'll make it a copy of the Guild Pact Informant. It'll start with a +1/+1 counter, and then we will attack with the Guild Pact Informant in the air. Gideon can't block, so we'll take 4 and we'll go down to 16. This triggers to proliferate, putting in another +1/+1 counter on each, making this a 5/5 and this a 3/3, and then we will pass the turn. Gideon untaps. Gideon draws, gets a Gideon's Battle Cry, will play a Swamp, and then Gideon will attack with the Trusted Pegasus, the Charmed Stray, the Cruel Celebrant, and the Gideon's Company. And the Trusted Pegasus will give the Charmed Stray flying. Jace is in a tough spot here because the potential for a combat trick is high, but we can't just take 9 damage. So we will aim for the most trade that we can get, and we will put the Spark Double in front of the Curious Stray. Gideon will reply with the expected Desperate Lunge, making the Charmed Stray a 3/3 flyer, and will also gain 2 life, which will trigger the Gideon's Company to become a 7/7. The Charmed Stray and the Spark Double will trade, and we will get through with 10 damage. Jace loses the Spark Double. It takes 10 to go to 3. Gideon loses the Charmed Stray, but first we'll gain 3 life from its lifelink to go up to 19. And because we gained 3 life, Gideon's Company will gain another +2/+2 to go up to 6 counters. And then the Cruel Celebrant will trigger from the Charmed Stray dying, so we'll gain another life to go up to 20. And then we'll trigger this again to make this 8 counters. And then Gideon will pass the turn. Jace draws, gets a Forest, finally. We'll tap everything. We'll play a Guild Informant as well as a Merfolk Skydiver. The Merfolk Skydiver is a 1/1 Merfolk Mutant with flying. When Merfolk Skydiver enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. For 3 green and blue, you can proliferate. We'll put it on the Merfolk Skydiver, and then we're going to have to pass because we are afraid of a potential combat trick from our opponent. Gideon untaps. Gideon draws, gets a Desperate Lunge, and then Gideon will attack with everybody. And the Pegasus will give the Cruel Celebrant flight. Jace will chump the Gideon's Company with the Guild Pact Informant. We'll put the Guild Pact Informant on the Cruel Celebrant and the Merfolk Skydiver on the Trusted Pegasus. In response, Gideon will tap a Plains and a Swamp and cast Desperate Lunge, targeting the Trusted Pegasus, giving it +2/+2. We'll gain 2 life, making this get 2 more counters to become a 13/13. And then damage will happen. The Cruel Celebrant will die. The Merfolk Skydiver will die, as will the Guild Pact Informant. The Cruel Celebrant will trigger, giving Gideon 1 life, going up to 21. We'll trigger the Gideon's Company again, going up to 12 +1/+1 counters, making it a 15/15. And then Gideon will pass the turn. Jace will untap. Jace will draw. We'll get a Simic Guildgate. We'll play that tapped. We'll spend 5 mana and play a Bio Essence Hydra. Oh, we'll also lose 1 life because of the trigger from the Cruel Celebrant from last turn. And we can't really attack because we need to block everything, and so we will pass the turn. Gideon untaps. Gideon draws. Gets an Enforcer Griffin. This is probably it. We'll go ahead and tap the Plains of the Swamp to play another Cruel Celebrant, and then we'll attack with the Trusted Pegasus and the Gideon's Company, the Pegasus giving the company flight. Jace only has 1 flying creature. We'll block the Gideon's Company with the Guild Pact Informant, and we'll lose the Guild Pact Informant, and we'll take 2 damage from the Trusted Pegasus to lose the game. And that is it. The winner is Gideon, getting in on Jace's Mana Screw. I think both of the decks are pretty strong for Planeswalker decks. I'm pretty impressed with their relative synergies. Let me know what you thought about these games in the comments below. I probably missed maybe one or two of those cruel Celebrant triggers in terms of the life loss, and maybe Jace would have lost sooner because of that. If you saw any gameplay errors or rules errors, also let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more such videos, hit subscribe. Next time, I'll be pitting these two Planeswalker decks up against the Face the Hydra Challenge deck from Theros. Until then, this was Refresh, and thanks for watching.